what is the support that you need to get to your goals, right? And so when you think about this, what is the support that you need to be the leader that really you're destined to be? Because people are looking for you already, and they can't find you if you're not putting your stuff out there. So write the book, do the talk, put your video out there on social media, put the post, just do it.
Welcome to Oversharing with Rhonda, a podcast to amplify the voices of trailblazing women. My name is Rhonda Khan, and I believe in the power of authenticity, vulnerability, and storytelling to connect the masses. As a public speaking coach, speech therapist, performer, mom, and chronic oversharer, I'm often empowering others to own their stories. And what I found is that the most transformative change happens when we share our journeys while being unapologetically ourselves. I have switched careers at least 4 times. Each time it had to be done. Each time it was scary. Each time I did have doubt. I was slightly worried about what people would think. But each time I was so grateful that I did. The first time I did it was in 2009. I was working as a full-time speech pathologist at a school, but acting part-time, after work, on the weekends, in the theater. Shout out to the pre-kid me and the energy I had in my 20s. When I got into the actors training program I was so eager to be selected for, which was school at Steppenwolf, I decided to quit my full-time job and fully pursue my acting career. I knew that that opportunity would launch my acting career forward, and I long knew that that is where my heart belonged. So listen, I am such a gut feeling person. For those of you who love Strengths Finders, Clifton Strengths, if you know about them, my top 2 strengths are futuristic and activator. Futuristic meaning I'm a high visionary. I see the future. I stay in it. I know where I'm going. An activator meaning that when I decide something, I make it happen. I get it done. I don't waste time. And these are not bad qualities. I'm also an ENFP for those of you who care about Myers-Briggs. And so that means extroverted, intuitive, feeling, perceptive. I'm very intuitive. I'm very about my feelings. And this is really helpful because I can move forward in a way that some people can't. I dream big. I reach for the stars. And when I decide to do something, I do it. But guess what, y'all? I am not always great at figuring out the strategy. And I laugh to make fun of myself. Listen, y'all, I quit that job in the middle of a recession. When gas was $5 a gallon. When folks were losing their jobs and losing their homes. I was living with my parents. Listen, but I was all about pursuing that dream. Even though I had a car payment, even though I had bills still. I love my decision. So much happened when I went to pursue my acting career. You know, I got an agent maybe right after the conservatory. I did auditions. I did theater work. I had a national commercial with Chinette. But I had a lot of bumps in the road, a lot of challenges, and a lot of hardships. After lots of exciting ups and downs with my acting career, I decided I needed to go back to working at schools as a speech pathologist in 2011. I needed some normalcy. I needed some stillness. I needed some predictable income. I needed things to be simpler. But in 2014, in the middle of the school year, I quit again. It still wasn't it. And I knew that I had to move on from working in schools. I love children, but the system, that job, it did not align with who I always had been and who I was becoming. I knew that it was limiting my creativity. I knew there were grander things that I needed to do. So I quit again to pursue my acting career, to maybe start a business, to really figure myself out. Once again, I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot. I had some cool experiences. I developed a play, my one-woman show Food. I traveled tons. But I was also constantly stressed and worried about money and what to do because I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have a plan. Now, if you've heard me on any podcast or live or anything, I talk about my business journey all the time. I was working multiple jobs in 2015 and I got pregnant with my kiddo. Pregnancy complication had me lose said jobs, and then I became a stay-at-home mom after my son was born. After 6 months of mommyhood, I figured I had nothing to lose, and I started my business, Simply Speech Solutions. Now, there is a whole other podcast about my business journey, and I regret nothing because I'm so grateful to have a growing, evolving, and thriving business where I get to uplift, amplify, and pour into folks daily. However, I could have saved myself lots of headaches had I mapped a plan and had I had folks to consult with as I transitioned. For those of you who are thinking of changing careers or are like me and have transitioned a few times, you know the path is not always lit. You can Google until your heart's content, but it won't give you the tools and guidance to embark on your journey. I wish I'd had a guide when I was making my changes. The good thing is, there is. Today, I am chatting career change with my good friend, Cynthia Pong. Cynthia is a feminist career coach for women of color and the author of a new best-selling book, Don't Stay in Your Lane, The Career Change Guide for Women of Color. Now, if you haven't heard of Cynthia, you need to, because one conversation with her will get you completely together. For anyone who's changed careers, thought of changing careers, in the midst of a career change, you do not want to miss this episode. Cynthia is my colleague, client, and friend-tor, and I cherish her so much. I am pleased to share her with you today. Cynthia Pong, JD, is an award-winning career strategist, speaker, and author of Don't Stay in Your Lane, The Career Change Guide for Women of Color. An NYU-trained lawyer turned career coach, she's on a mission to get women of color the money, power, and respect they deserve. Her career advice has been featured in NPR, HuffPost, CNBC, and more. Cynthia is also a LinkedIn top voice for job search and career. Cynthia Pong, welcome to Oversharing with Rhonda.
Thank you. Thank you. I love to overshare and I love you.
All right, let's dive in. You started off as a public defender.
Yeah.
And now you are a career leadership negotiation coach for women of color. What was the moment when you were a public defender that you decided, no, not this, not anymore?
I know there actually is a moment, and I wrote about it in my book under the section that is entitled The Moment. So clearly I can be really cliche, but I remember specifically that I was so I was a public defender in the Bronx in New York City. And there's a courthouse there. It's like very shiny glass building, whatever, like modern looking, and it's called the Bronx Hall of Justice. And you can't see me on the podcast, but I'm making a gross, nauseated face because in my opinion, there is not much justice that happens in that building. Nevertheless, I was in that building because that was my job. I was in the basement floor outside of a courtroom, and I was standing there with a relatively newer client and his family. But on arraignment, I had met him for the first time. He was charged with like a felony, released. This was the first court date back after he got out after that first initial arrest. I was standing there with his family and we're talking about the case, and we'd just seen the judge, and the prosecutor dismissed the felony charges. So they got rid of all the high level serious charges, but they left all the misdemeanor charges. So that happens a lot. You know, like everybody wants their case dismissed immediately, but that really doesn't happen because, again, not much justice happens in the system. So I was standing outside explaining, okay, your case still exists as a misdemeanor. We can totally fight it. It's probably going to take about up to 3 years to get to trial. I said it's super blasé like that, right? Like no big deal, 3 years. You'll just keep coming back to court every 1 to 2 months and we'll fight it. And they were like, what? Right? Because this is now like bullshit misdemeanor charges, super low level. You know, on a misdemeanor in New York, the maximum jail time that you can do is a year. But in reality, the maximum jail time, if you're out, is nothing. for most cases. And they were just like, they couldn't wrap their heads around why this case would drag on for 3 years. And of course they wouldn't, because that's ridiculous. But I was so entrenched in the system, Rhonda, that I was like, this is normal. It's like that dog meme. The dog meme where there's fire in the room and dog just sitting there with a cup of coffee. This is fine.
Yeah.
I had become that. Right. And then I was real. And I heard myself as I was saying these words, and the inside voice in my head was like, what the fuck are you saying, Cynthia? Because the tone I was using was like, yeah, it's 3 years. Like, just let's move it along, get with the program. I got 6 other clients I got to get to right now. So please just let's not do this whole thing. And I realized I've become so callous in my burnout that I forgot like the humanity in the process and like how traumatizing the whole thing is for people who get swept up by cops. They're arrested in like super dehumanizing and humiliating ways. And then they're processed through the system with no regard to their jobs, their lives, their kids, all the other collateral consequences, as they're called, but the real consequences for 3 years for like nothing, So that was when I realized I needed to make a change because I was no longer able to do the job that I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it.
So what did that change look like? Because I know it wasn't like, okay, I quit today and I left. Because we often have those feelings when we know it's not. But then what?
I know. So then it was a lot of like what would to an outside person look very boring, and what in a movie would be the montage sequence. A year is condensed into like 5 seconds with some funky music or whatever. No, what happened was I decided I needed to take a sabbatical from my job. And so luckily I worked for legal aid. We were unionized, which is pretty unusual. But I'm so grateful for them. We had such good benefits, including I could take an unpaid sabbatical for 6 months, 9 months, a year, and still go back to my job without, having to re-interview, without being worried that I couldn't go back. So I put in for a full year sabbatical, unpaid, and I put in for it. I applied for it 10 months in advance. I was that person. I was like, I'm not ready now. I need to wrap up all these things. Like, I can't be telling clients I'm leaving like right now. I can't do that to them. There's a lot of that going on. Low key savior complex. And I was also like, I don't want there to be a chance in hell that I get denied for this thing. So I applied for it super strategically. I wanted it to start in April of, Q2 of the next year, so that I wouldn't be without a job and without structure in winter when I might be like depressed for other reasons.
Yeah.
So I thought like long and hard about what I was going to do. And then I went on the sabbatical. It took about 2 months to literally do nothing, like do my life, all the things I had mortgaged off and put off because I was like, I can't do this because my job. Like, I took a Spanish language class. I took a woodworking course. I took a carpentry course. I did all these fun things. I walked around outside. I journaled. I like hung out in coffee shops with people who have like non-traditional work schedules. It was a whole new world for me. I was like, who are these people? And I realized it was kind of normal for them. Of course, now we're in a new pandemic, quote unquote normal. And it was glorious. And then like 2 to 3 months in, I started getting that itch. And also I planned this out financially too. We can talk about that too, if you're interested. But, then I was like, oh, I got to figure out what I'm doing. It's been like a great, like long vacation of 2 months, and like, what the fuck, Cynthia, right? What's next? So then I started thinking about it, and my former therapist, who's also a business coach, was like helping me think through things. So I wasn't like totally alone. I did a lot of soul searching, wrote about a lot of like the exercises I created for myself in my book. I did like so much. I geeked out. I really went deep, thought some more. And then I decided I wanted to go start my own business and try that out. So I was like, I would like to work for myself. And what I really want to do is like work with my friends. I want to work with cool people. I don't want to have to deal with like annoying prosecutors and annoying judges who like really just don't get me. So I did all this thinking. I started my own business. The first version of that business, I was going to do nonprofit consulting.
Oh.
I was going to work with social justice and progressive organizations so they could be like less shitty for their staff, less shitty for their clients, like do a better job marketing themselves, all of this stuff. I was very pie in the sky, and I had a lot of hubris thinking like, I'm the one who's going to help all these organizations fix themselves. Yeah, I was pretty full of myself. That flopped like hard. It was a massive massive non-starter. So I tried that for 4 to 6 months, could not get a paid client at all. I had to try so hard in order to get just one pro bono client. And it was a shit show. So that taught me entrepreneurship. It's a lot of work to get work.
Yes.
I was not prepared.
One more time for the people everywhere. Get real loud in their headphones.
It's a lot of work to get any work. I know we've both been through the ringer, with this. And you kind of, something that I think you sort of just have to learn sometimes, or at least be mentally prepared for. And that's okay. So luckily, in the middle of that 4 to 6 months when I couldn't get this 1.0 of my business started, there was a seed planted. So my therapist / business coach was like, why don't you teach this training to former lawyers? It'll like get you out there in front of hundreds of people. You'll get like exposure, quote unquote, and it'll be good marketing. I was like, oh, fine. I don't want to talk to lawyers anymore. But, after a couple of weeks and months of not getting any paid work, I was like, fine, I'll do it. So I did it. I taught this course on mindfulness, like mindfulness for lawyers, and it took off. I didn't get paid a cent for it, by the way, because I was doing it for this other company that charged $60 a pop for people to watch it. And it got like 2,000 views.
Whoa.
So I was like, there's money in this. Not for me this time, but there's money in this. So I pivoted my business. 2.0 was me doing mindfulness trainings. Did that for a while. Then I was like, there's still something missing. I miss the one-on-one connection. Like I miss working with people on like real change. I'm seeing these people in large groups for like 45 minutes, an hour and a half, and I never see them again. To me, that wasn't what I wanted to do. So then I put out a Facebook message. It's like, hey, everybody, experiment 50 in my business. Hey, everybody, I'm considering taking on some clients in a coaching capacity. If you're interested, sign up here. First session is free. I got 4 interested signups. I got 2 clients from that to pay me for a program after. I did that one more time, same results. One of those clients is still working with me today. Not that it's like a forever thing, but like for her, like I kind of play more of like a strategic partner in her business.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then it just like rolled from there. I kept niching down, and then now I'm feminist career strategist for mid-career women of color.
Amazing. There's so much about this journey that I think is so relevant for anybody who wants to change careers, but very specifically for those who seem to stumble into entrepreneurship as you did, as I did.
Yes.
Because I love that you painted how the road will wind and you discover things about yourself, but you have to start taking action to make that discovery, because had you not taken the action of being like, hey, no, don't want to do this public defender thing. Okay, sabbatical's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to be in this space of, I don't know really what to do, but I'm going to do me for 2 months. Okay, done doing me. Let's see what's next. Okay, maybe I'll do this. Okay, didn't work. But it's a lot of testing and changing and pivoting through the way to get you where you are. And I think that is something important to normalize for everybody, because they often see the end result and they don't even know, like what was happening. So I want to get into that piece about the journey, because I know a lot, as a Black woman and for women of color, for me, like there's a thing about, I think some shame maybe when you switch from a very high air quote, legitimate career.
Prestigious.
And, depending on what your family or what your cultural expectations are for success, I feel like that is such a thing of like, why are you changing? Like, why would you do that? And so I'm curious what you wanted to be when you grew up, and how was the response when you changed and decided no?
Yes. Right. Okay. What I wanted, this is so great. And again, we could go down many rabbit holes here, but I'll try to keep it high level. The first thing I ever remember wanting to be was an architect when I was like a kid. Yeah. Like 5, 6 years old or whatever. Your world is like your home and your house with your family, right? So it's like, I want to be an architect, that I can design a house for my family, and we can have a store on the bottom level and we can all live upstairs. So ridiculous. I was basically coming up with the setup to like Kim's Convenience, which is one of my favorite TV shows, and like any number of sitcoms, right?
Wow.
So that was the first thing. Then in second grade, my teacher, Mr. Cox, taught us about the solar system. And so then I was like, oh my God, I want to be an astronomer. And that must have really stuck with me because I went to college thinking I wanted to major in astrophysics. That's another huge twist.
That's
like,
huge.
So yeah, then I wanted to be a community organizer because I got really politicized and radicalized, and I don't mean that in a negative, pejorative way, but in a good way, in college. That really set the stage for my whole life. Super formative, made me social justice oriented and stuff. So then I wanted to be a community organizer. Tried again, this is back to the action and the experimentation, right? I signed up to do this. I applied for and I got this summer internship to do labor organizing with this super cool, rad Center for Third World Organizing in California. Did that. Couldn't hack it. I was like, we were doing all this canvassing and door knocking and I couldn't do it. It was just so hard and I couldn't take the constant rejection. So then I was like, all right, well, if I can't make change from the outside, can I make change from the inside? So then I defaulted, similarly to how I ended up defaulting into entrepreneurship, into thinking I wanted to go to law school to be a public defender. So that's really what took me up until that point. And yeah, this is the thing. A lot of people come to me and they think that they're focused on that endpoint and some dream scenario that they may have a fuzzy vision of or a clear vision of, but without any stress around it because you have to sit with a lot of unknowns and discomfort and messiness in the middle. All that blood, sweat, and tears part, like that applies for even if you're not an entrepreneur and you're just going through this haze of like, I hate what I'm doing now, but I don't know what I want to do instead. It's so stressful for people. And it's like why I wrote my book, and then add it on for people of color, especially women of color, especially first gen folks, especially if you grew up in an immigrant household, there is so much pressure. Your parents, your generations behind you, feeling like you're carrying all the hopes of your people to do X, Y, Z. And if you broke into some field, like some fancy, quote unquote, prestigious field, like, the meal plan, medical, engineering, accounting, law. I've heard it called that before by like Asian American community folks. It's very hard to then be like, no, I need to take a hard left turn. I have to like do this for me when it's something creative, something less quote unquote prestigious. Yeah, I'm talking about that stuff in this masterclass in June too. So I've been like thinking a lot about it, the added pressures of the intersectionality of like the lives we live.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that because I feel like there often is a response of, why are you doing this? Or like, it doesn't compute to some people. So like, I'm a Black woman. I'm, for lack of a better word, African American. So I don't necessarily have immigrant parents, but there was, I feel like pressure on me. Like I am a speech pathologist. And so it's a legitimate career. It's a career that, provides a lot of value. I'm probably one of the first members of family on both sides to get a master's degree.
Yeah.
But my first year as a speech pathologist, I was an actor and I was in my first, non-union theater, non-union play, like my very first year in what they call the clinical fellowship year when you are a speech pathologist. And like immediately I was doing it. And I remember having a conversation, and I love my mama. So mama, you listening? I'm not mad because you see where we are. But before I applied to grad school, I knew that I had the bug. There you say it. I wanted to be an actor, and I was thinking about getting an MFA in acting. And she was like, okay. And like, I have what you call cool parents. And so they are creative and they're bohemian-ish and this or that. But they also had a lot of, I'm an only child. There's a lot of pressure on me to be succeeding and excellent or whatever that means.
Yes.
And so she was like, okay, well, you want to be an actor? That's great. So here's what I think. That's going to be a completely different trajectory, and your whole life is going to change. Like, just all this stuff that was like really honest.
Really went there.
We will support you if we will. And like, those are my parents. Like, they're down, but like, they're going to project, and it was protection. And so I ended up not doing that. And as soon as I got out of grad school, I did acting anyway and quit my job after the first 2 years, got an agent, and was like, boom, I'm in a Chinet commercial. Like, so
nice.
So there was always this pressure of like having one foot in and one foot out. Like I still call myself a speech pathologist because I am, but I haven't done clinical work in years, but like still like that sense of validation. And I'm so curious, if as people transition careers, how do they let go of like that persona that was a part of, because there's a persona with being a lawyer.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? There's a thing. And so how do you let go of like that being a part of your identity when you really know, like you really did that, like, this is the thing. This is the new thing.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Especially in the US, in Western culture and stuff, we're so tied identity wise to what we do for a living. People will judge you. People will size you up. We love to categorize someone in a split second. Then that's one of the ways that we do it, aside from visual appearance, right? And seeing your race, how you present gender and all that. So there is this process in change. Every change is kind of like a mini or big grieving process. I think about that a lot. It's a grieving and a mourning process. Even if you think you're moving to something you're excited about, you do have to let go of what you might have been hanging on to before, or what you might have identified with before. And that's hard.
Yeah.
It can be very painful. At the very least, it's uncomfortable. And you might find that presenting in different ways, like manifesting in different ways in your life, like maybe you're a little snappier with the people around you, or like, more tired or feeling sluggish. It could be any number of things, right? We may not even know, but I think about that a lot. Every change, every little twist and turn is potentially a grieving process. So I still say to people too, that I am a lawyer, because technically I am still a lawyer. I also just don't practice. And I do talk about my public defender past, like proudly and openly, because I don't think, like, I don't want to subscribe to this feeling of like there being shame around how my career went. It went how it went. It did the best I could, It is what it is. And I also do the end of the process of writing my book. And I'm like, being that annoying person is like, yeah, I wrote about this in my book. But it is true that I put my whole journey in there, because I hope that it does help other people. But the process of writing also was therapeutic for me, in that by the end, I saw that thread of connection. And you can only connect the dots looking back, right? I think that's like a Steve Jobs or somebody else quote. But I was feeling this missing piece of like, I don't get how what I do now in my business connects at all to what I did before. And it's like, okay, I guess I can be okay with just like being totally disconnected and two just like not fitting together pieces. Like I can get down with that, is what I was saying to myself. But I do also think that like there was this elegant solution that I then saw, this thread of what happened in my career, which is that I recreated for myself a role that I played when I was in college as what was then called a minority peer counselor. So I went to this like hippy dippy school, and we're very social justice, and I love it for that. And so every unit of incoming college students, first years, had 3 counselors, not 1 RA, 3, because we had to be extra. So one was your generic, whatever default resident counselor. So like could be your typical white guy or like anybody else. Then one was a woman peer counselor. And then you had a minority peer counselor. It's really pretty intersectional, for back when I was in school in the early 2000s. So I became a minority peer counselor during my sophomore year, my second year. And I loved it. And it was peer counseling, right? Specifically with an intersectional lens. You're supposed to be there especially for the students of color in your unit, and also for all the students of color across campus. And so that's kind of what I did for myself. Like I support women of color and people of color in the workplace trying to survive and thrive within white supremacy.
Boom.
Yeah.
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 It's an incredible, it's alignment. It's like you.
Yeah, I know you were just talking in Catalyst Academy, right? You all just talked about alignment.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we very much do. And we talk about that a lot. So like, that's incredible. Now that you're here, just this past year, you've written your book, and your book is titled "Don't Stay in Your Lane: The Career Change Guide for Women of Color." And it has gotten such an incredible response. Like just like people have been like, yes, yes, yes. How did you know this was a book that you had to write?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I'm going to do the annoying thing where I will answer that question. I also will say this to everyone listening. If you even think you have a book in you, write the damn book, because people are waiting for it. And I feel like Don't Stay in Your Lane was a living, breathing example of that. And I'm sure, Rhonda, you have at least a trilogy in you of like books that you could be writing. So like, do it, take that action, take that leap. Let this be the permission you give yourself if you are thinking about doing it. People are waiting for your book. Only you can write that book, and they're waiting for it. So what made me know that I had to write this book? And also it took me 3 years to write it, so that people also know that it's not like a overnight thing. And I was doing it on the side of building my business. What made me realize was, one, I think I wrote about this in the intro. I was listening to some random podcast, but thank God for podcasts, right? Because they can really change your life.
Yes.
So I was listening to a podcast, and Jamie Foxx was like the guest on it, and he was saying something about like advice he'd give his former self, and it was like to not wait or something like that, not wait till your X milestone before you do take that risk or take that leap. I think that was it, but that's how I took it anyway. And I always had in my mind, oh, maybe I'll write a book, like maybe in my 40s, because my therapist business coach had said, you should write a book. I was like, I frequently, she would have all these grandiose ideas for me. I thought they were grandiose. They were actually spot on. And I'd be like, I roll, like, yeah, right, whatever. And then she would be totally correct. So that's also a side note. Invest in yourself, invest in your mental health, and invest in your wellness, invest in your professional development, because you never know. So she told me first, and then I listened to this podcast, and I was like, oh, well, I had always thought maybe I'd write it in my 40s. So maybe I should just start writing it now. So I was learning about the process. I was like, okay. And so I started, I think, on Thanksgiving break one year, because I always do this. I'm a bit of a workaholic. And if I have any gap, I'm just like, okay, what's this next big project that I have to do? Let me start it as I'm packing or whatever. I'm that person. And then the topic, it was clear to me because everyone would come to me and be like, how did you make, like, same questions you asked before. How did you make that leap? Everyone thinks it's straight up A to B. 1 month you're a public defender, the next month you're doing this successful business. No, right? So I was telling that story over and over again. And so I was listening to that. People clearly want to know. So maybe I should put it in a format where they can know without having to listen to me tell it every time. It's, a little more accessible for people who maybe want guidance through their very daunting career change process and cannot work with me individually for whatever reason, right? Financially, capacity, it's just not for them. I wanted to make another way for people to access my advice. And so I poured everything into it. Like literally everything I walk my clients through with respect to career change, I put it in this book so that the reader can just coach themselves. And so it was for reasons of thinking I might be hit by a Mack truck tomorrow, and also business decision to build out my offerings and be able to reach people in a more versatile way, help people with different learning preferences. Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. So we're going to have everybody, if you are thinking about changing careers, if you're in a career change, you have to get Cynthia's book, Don't Stay in Your Lane. What would be the top 3 tips that women of color would need to know if they are in the process of career change or even thinking about it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to argue with you and say nobody has to do anything, but if you do have a big goal, you should probably do something.
Okay.
You have agency to choose. At the same time, I'm not going to minimize. And this book is like, it can really transform your career. And I made sure, like, in all the process of vetting it with people and like clients I've worked with in the past and like having beta readers and stuff, like I wanted to make sure this thing really delivered value, so it's not. And one of the readers said to me too, they were like, this is not a book. This is a course. I was like, oh shit. I had one of those light bulb moments. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. It is. It's not like a fluffy, you just read it and there's some like, nice pithy career advice. Like, oh, cool. It actually forces you to sit down and confront some things in yourself so you can figure out your way. Mm-hmm. All right. Back to the 3 tips for women of color who you said want to change careers.
Yeah.
Oof. Okay. 1, give yourself permission.
Ooh.
Hands down. That's even if you don't want to change careers. And we're always in a career change, to be honest. But give yourself permission. The one major thing that comes up time and time again with my clients is they want me to give them permission to do something. You know, like we find out after working together, the reason they hired me, and I bet you find this with people in Catalyst Academy too. They just want someone else to say, you can do this. Like, go ahead, please do this.
Yeah.
So part of the process is helping clients internalize that so they can give themselves permission. I'm no longer a crutch for them. I'm not an extra training wheel they don't need because I'm not about that, you know? So what is it you need to give yourself permission for? How can you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Today, tonight, this weekend. That's not really so much a tip, but like it is an activity, an action. I feel that is very active to do that. So have that conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
And another tip is like, write down all the things that are blocking you. So is it the voice of your ancestors in your head?
Wait a minute. Let's pause that. Let's just
hold on. Wait a minute.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Is it the voice of the ancestors? Okay, I have to speak on that. So two things. Give yourself permission is something I preach all the time, and absolutely I see that. But also in my work in the Catalyst Academy and in many things, we all have these narratives of who says we should do X, Y, Z, and they all come from somewhere. And so framing it, the ancestors in your head. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm a literal person. So when I first said it, I did mean it more in a literal way. And especially because we were talking about how we can inherit generational trauma, shame, all these feels, a lot of negative feelings. And like, I'm not saying that to blame anyone. Everyone is doing their best. Like, it's probably the fucking hardest job in the world to be a parent. And I'm not a parent, you know, but this happens because of the larger systems that we're in and the larger cultures that we live in and are immersed in. So there may be a lot of voices that you have internalized. It's like, oh, I should do this. Like, oh, this would be the safer choice. So many of my clients are very risk averse. And why? Because we're trained and socialized and conditioned to be that way. And I'm not just saying by like our parents and stuff. Like if our parents are telling us this, it's for a reason, right? Yeah. Like there's a reason that Black parents have to talk to their Black children and have that conversation about what happens if you get pulled over by a cop.
Listen.
Right? Yeah. So all of that is necessary harm reduction because we live in white supremacy. We live in capitalism. We live in a super commercialized, commodified world. And there's real risks to us doing things as people of color and as women of color. That the hammer will come down on you in a way that it won't for white folks. It just will not.
Bottom line.
Yeah. So I always try to remember that too when I'm being like a little, you know, I on my social media, I can be a little aggressive, you know, like really trying to push people out of love. I feel like tough love. And to be that voice to encourage people to push a little harder. And then I also have these moments where I remember we have these voices because we are from communities that have been repressed, that have been marginalized, that have been incarcerated, that have been erased for generations. So let's have a little grace with ourselves and let me not be so intense all the time sometimes too. So have a gentle conversation with yourself. What are these voices that you're hearing and like write them down, no judgment, right? Because some actually might be really good and still apply. But I want everyone to have that space for themselves to be intentional. Like, is this one I want to adopt? Is this one I still need to subscribe to? Yeah. Is this time to unsubscribe from this one? Like you would unsubscribe to any mailing list.
Unsubscribe from this narrative. Unsubscribe. Yeah. Yes. I love that. That's a post. I need you to post that.
Okay. I will always do what you say.
Well, I have a question because pivoting to your growth as now you have slashes in your name, if you will, like that come after, like coach, author, speaker, blah, 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 or whatever.
No, it's so annoyingly long.
No, but that's great because you are actively working in all of those spaces. And we both talk about leadership, right? So like in my space of public speaking is a tool to grow your thought leadership, to do 100%. What you're supposed to do. And in my way of doing it is like, you have to show up, you have to be visible, your voice and your opinion and your work matters, and you have to speak about it in order to do the work. And I know for you, you coach on leadership, and sometimes people hear the word leadership and they're like, I don't know. There's like a freeze or a pause because they don't, maybe that word seems scary or daunting to them. So how would you define leadership, and why is it important for women of color to invest in their leadership?
Oh my God. Yes. This is perfect because I'm going to wrap this up into a couple other things. The way I define leadership is super broad because I do get a lot of women of color pushing back. I'm not a leader. Oh, I'm not a manager. I don't have a supervising role yet. And I'm like, forget that. Actually, capitalist white supremacy voice in your head. Leadership is not about the fucking role or the title that you have. It is about you having a position, taking some initiative, and like taking a stand. So 100% what you said, putting yourself out there, putting your voice out there, putting your point of view out there, which is absolutely unique. I always ask my clients this too, like, what do you think is unique that you bring to this world? 50% of the time or more, they can't answer that question. And so I know there's work to be done there because 100% everybody is bringing their special sauce, right? And I feel like that's what you and I both do is help people reconnect with that if they're not already really tuned into what their special sauce is. But that's how I define leadership, like taking that initiative, seeing a problem, here's a solution, vocalizing it. And it can be in writing too. It doesn't have to be like literally your voice. And it can be separate apart. Surely there's overlap sometimes, but it can be separate apart from what you do for your day job and whether you have a supervising or managerial role. I feel like it's so much. If you're, I hate the term individual contributor because it feels so like sterile. But if you're someone, that is like a staff line staff person, you're not leading a team yet or whatever, like you can still be a leader. Hello. Like you could be a leader in your thought leadership online or to your colleagues. You can even be a leader to the person you report to who may be a shitty leader,
Well,
So
I think some people resonating with that right now.
Yeah, I know. Raise your hand if you have a shitty boss. Anyway, so yeah, please do that. And then here's what I'm going to wrap it up to. You had asked me for 3 tips. I really only gave you 2, but the third one was going to be for women of color who want to change careers or who want to grow their career in any type of way. What is the support that you need to get to your goals? Right. And so when you think about this, what is the support that you need to be the leader that really you're destined to be? Because people are looking for you already and they can't find you if you're not putting your stuff out there, if you're not speaking, if you're not writing, if you're not showing your face. You are holding those people back. Just talked about this on a panel the other day for General Assembly. My business coach told me this about me feeling sheepish about telling people that my book exceeded $10,000 in book revenue in the first 2.5 months. I was like, oh, it's so gross. Why would I do that? It's going to make other people feel bad. And then she was like, you're literally holding other people back because you're not telling them that they can get this book and fucking transform their careers. It's like, oh, fine. So this is why we all, you and I too, we all need to get the support that we need to do the damn thing we're supposed to be doing. So write the book, do the talk, put your video out there on social media, put the post, just do it.
Drop every mic in every space. Yes. No more questions. But let me be no more questions.
No further questions, your Honor.
You said you're going to wrap it up and that's everything. But everything Cynthia says is right. Cynthia is what I call a Friend-tor, where we are colleagues, we are friends.
Likewise.
She's been my client. We've worked together in so many different ways.
Rhonda has taught me the ways.
No,
I will. Yeah, listen, can we do this right now? I mean, if anyone is looking at what I've been able to do as a public speaker, I went in super, super reluctantly. I was like, oh, I think this is something I have to do because people are asking me to do workshops. Or I think I need to build another business stream revenue stream for my business. And then I don't even know what the main tipping point was to hire you, but I knew in my heart that I needed to do it. And I'm so glad I invested that because look at what it did. It totally accelerated my progress in this space and it helped me really own the fact that, yeah, I am a speaker. Frankly, I have been speaking since as a lawyer, I was a fucking speaker. You know what I mean? I have 2 trials.
Yes.
I never even realized that till this very moment just now. So thanks for blowing my mind yet again. Everything Rhonda says is pure gold. power in the pause. You know, I'm a fast talker, but you will notice in this podcast, like at certain moments, I did take that dramatic pause. So, you know, if you're trying to grow your leadership, like the thought leadership through speaking and like using your voice, like Rhonda's the one, like hands down. So everybody look up Catalyst Academy right now, Google it, bookmark it, sign yourself up.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. And you
You're welcome.
are everything. If you need leadership, if you need negotiation coaching, if you need to change your career, get the book, hire Cynthia, get her on your speaker lineup, get her right now, because this is a sampling of this and so much more. Cynthia, I feel like we need to have part 2 because there's so much.
Yes, let's do it.
We can go. So we're going to circle back. But thank you so much for being a guest.
Of course.
On Oversharing with Rhonda.
Thank you for the privilege and honor. It's always so fun. You're the best.
Listen, Cynthia is the truth. She is everything. She's one person that I recommend. Do what she says, work with her, buy all her stuff, because it is completely transformative. Buy her book, Don't Stay in Your Lane, immediately at Embrace Change NYC on all platforms. And listen, you may not know what to do, but you have to take action to move forward. You don't figure it out and then do. Clarity comes with action. You got to embrace that messy middle. Don't wait till the next milestone to do something. One thing that I love that she said, people are looking for you already. They cannot find you if you're not out there, if you're not leading, if you're not speaking, if you're not using your voice. Write the book, do the post, do the talk. And Cynthia said it, not me, but investing in her speaking was a major part of her growth as a leader and as a speaker. So, and you know what's coming next. We do all that in the Catalyst Academy. Please go to bit.ly/the Catalyst Academy pod to join us and start your leadership journey. Invest in your growth, take some action, and move forward. Thanks everyone for listening, and see you next time.